"There's no place for you here, and no food," my son-in-law snapped, placing a plastic plate with leftovers on the floor during our Thanksgiving dinner. I was expecting family warmth, but instead I got humiliation in front of strangers. I turned around and walked away without saying a word. The next day they regretted it, because my silent revenge began to destroy their world. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The unfamiliar cars in my driveway made me pause. 3 of them parked at careless angles like whoever owned them didn't plan on staying long. I checked my watch, 5 o'clock exactly, and walked to the door of the house I'd built with my own hands 30 years ago. I knocked. Voices inside, laughter, the clink of glasses. No one answered. I knocked again. The door swung open. Leonard filled the frame, 6'2" and broad-shouldered, wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment. He didn't step aside. "You're late," he said. "I'm right on time, actually." He glanced back over his shoulder, then at me, like he was calculating something. "We're in the middle of things. Henrietta invited me for 5. I kept my voice level. "It's 5. He shrugged and finally moved, but not welcoming, more like tolerating. I stepped into my own house and stopped. The dining room was full of strangers. 8, maybe 9 people I'd never seen before, all seated around the table I'd refinished last spring. Young folks, Leonard's age, holding wine glasses and looking at me with mild curiosity, the kind of look you give someone's elderly relative who wanders in during a party. Henrietta emerged from the kitchen carrying a serving bowl. My daughter, 35 years old and still beautiful like her mother had been. Same high cheekbones, same careful way of moving. She saw me and her eyes skittered away. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart." "Hi, Dad." Her voice barely made it across the room. Leonard moved past me, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Not accidental. "We're just about to eat. You showed up at an awkward time." The invitation said 5 o'clock. I looked around the room again, counting chairs. It's 5 o'clock. One of Leonard's friends, 30-ish guy with a beard, raised his wineglass slightly. Acknowledgement or mockery, I couldn't tell. A woman next to him whispered something and they both smiled. I scanned the table. Turkey at the center, sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, rolls. Every chair occupied, every place setting claimed. Where should I sit? The question hung there. Leonard tilted his head, making a show of surveying his own arrangement. "That's a good question." Someone laughed nervously. A woman in a red sweater said, "Maybe we can squeeze in another chair?" "No need." Leonard's voice carried that particular satisfaction of someone about to deliver a punchline. "I've got the perfect spot." He walked into the kitchen. I heard cabinets opening, something plastic scraping. Henrietta stood frozen by the table, still holding the serving bowl. Our eyes met for half a second before she looked down. Leonard returned carrying a plastic plate. The cheap kind, white with a flimsy rim, that you'd use for a child's picnic. He walked past the dining table, past all his friends watching with uncertain expressions, and set it on the floor near the entrance door. Right there on the hardwood I'd installed myself. Then he went back to the table and started scraping. Took the serving spoon from the turkey platter and dropped dried-out pieces onto the plastic plate. Added a scoop of congealed gravy, some stuffing that had been sitting too long. He moved methodically, like he'd planned this. He placed the plate back on the floor, straightened up, smiled. "Right here works for you." Nobody moved. The room had gone completely silent, except for someone's uncomfortable breathing. "What are you doing?" "Giving you exactly what you deserve." Leonard crossed his arms. "You always said you weren't picky." The bearded guy let out a short laugh, then caught himself. Leonard glanced at him. "Something funny about family taking care of family?" I looked at my daughter. She was staring at her own plate, hands gripping the serving bowl so tight her knuckles had gone pale. Her lips pressed together. She knew. She'd known this was coming, and she'd said nothing. That silence cut deeper than anything Leonard had done. I stood there looking at that plastic plate with its pile of scraps, positioned exactly where you'd put food for a dog. The house settled around me with familiar sounds, the furnace clicking on, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Sounds I'd heard for 3 decades. I'd built this table, paid for the food on it. I owned every brick in these walls. Old Alton would have apologized, would have laughed it off, made some joke about eating in the truck, anything to keep the peace. Old Alton would have carried that plastic plate outside and pretended his son-in-law wasn't a cruel man and his daughter wasn't a coward. But something in me had shifted. Something had gone hard and cold while I stood there watching Leonard's performance. I looked at Henrietta one more time. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. I turned and walked to the door. No shouting, no pleading, just one foot in front of the other, my shoulders straight, my head up. Behind me I heard chair legs scraping, someone clearing their throat. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. Before it closed completely, I heard laughter resume. Easy, relieved laughter, the party continuing. I stood there for a moment in the November cold, keys in my pocket, the keys to the house I was locked out of, the keys to the property I still owned. I got in my truck and didn't start it right away. Through the dining room window, I could see them all eating now, passing dishes, someone pouring more wine. Leonard leaned back in his chair at the head of the table, saying something that made everyone laugh. My hands found the steering wheel, gripped it. The house lights glowed warm against the darkening sky. I turned the key and drove away. But something stayed behind, something I'd carried too long, the weight of trying to keep peace. By morning I knew that weight would be gone. I don't remember the drive home. One moment I was pulling out of that driveway. The next I was standing in my own kitchen, still holding my truck keys. My apartment, modest, paid off, mine, felt empty in a way it never had before. The jacket was still on, my good shoes too. I stood there staring at nothing. No, not nothing. I was staring at years of choices that had led to a plastic plate on the floor. On the counter sat a bag from the grocery store. The Thanksgiving meal I'd picked up that afternoon, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, still sealed. I'd forgotten about it entirely. I left it there and moved to the kitchen table. Sat down, pulled out my laptop. The hours that followed had a strange clarity, like my vision had sharpened. I opened my banking app first, scrolled back through 4 years of statements, highlighting transactions in my mind. Rent-free living. The house they occupied had a market value of $1,500 a month. 4 years, $72,000. The business investment. Leonard's tech startup that was going to revolutionize something or other. I'd written a check for $80,000. He'd signed a promissory note, official and notarized. That document was in my filing cabinet. Smaller loans, emergency help with credit card debt, car repairs, medical bills that their insurance supposedly didn't cover. I added it up, another $15,000, maybe more. The total sat in my mind like a stone, $175,000, minimum. I got up and pulled the filing cabinet open, found the promissory note in a folder labeled Leonard Business. My handwriting on the tab, neat and hopeful. The paper was crisp, the signatures clear. Signed, dated, witnessed. Next folder, property documents. The deed to the house they lived in. Titled, solely in my name. I'd bought it as a rental property 20 years ago, kept it maintained, planned to use the income for retirement. Then Sarah died, heart attack at 59, sudden and brutal. And Henrietta needed her father, or so I'd told myself. When Leonard's startup collapsed and they asked to move in temporarily, I'd said yes. Temporary became permanent. 4 years. I sat back down with the documents spread across the table. After Sarah died, I wanted Henrietta close, I said out loud to the empty kitchen. Hearing my own voice made it real. When Leonard asked for startup money, I told myself I was helping family. When they asked to move in, I said yes to temporary. But I wasn't being generous. I was buying a relationship with my daughter. My phone buzzed. 11 o'clock. Henrietta's name on the screen. I watched it ring. 5 buzzes. 6. Then voicemail. The notification appeared. I played it on speaker. "Dad, please!" Her voice cracked. Background noise, dishes clattering. "Can we talk tomorrow? Please call me back." She had her chance to talk. At dinner. When it mattered. I set the phone face down and opened my laptop browser. Typed, "Texas eviction law, no lease." The results loaded. I read carefully, taking notes on a legal pad. Texas Property Code Section 2402. For month-to-month tenancy or tenancy at will, Landlord must provide notice to vacate. Minimum 30 days for residential property. If tenant refuses to leave after notice period, landlord can file eviction suit. Without a rental agreement, which we'd never signed, Leonard and Henrietta were technically tenants at will. I owned the property, paid all taxes, had documentation, more searching. Promissory note enforcement, Texas. Contract law. Statute of limitations. 4 years for written contracts. Leonard's note was 3 years old, well within the window. I kept reading until the sky started turning gray outside my window. Dawn came slowly, pink and gold through the kitchen blinds. I hadn't slept, hadn't even felt tired. The decision that had been forming all night crystallized with the daylight. I'd spent years avoiding conflict, calling it keeping the peace. But there was no peace. Just me, shrinking smaller and smaller until I could fit on a plastic plate on the floor. Leonard made a calculation. He thought I was too old, too soft, too desperate for family to fight back. He was wrong. I stood up, joints stiff, and walked to the bathroom. Showered, shaved, dressed in pressed khakis and a button-down shirt. Business clothes. The face in the mirror looked older than 63, but the eyes were different, harder. I made coffee, drank it standing at the counter. Then I took out my legal pad and wrote a list in neat handwriting. Marcus Wade, attorney, property documents. Promissory note, bank statements. Eviction notice requirements. Texas law. I looked up Marcus Wade's cell number. He handled real estate law for my construction business. Had for 15 years. Professional relationship, not friends. That was important. 6:15 in the morning. I called anyway. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Alton? What's wrong? I need an emergency meeting. Today. This morning. Silence. Then, it's the day after Thanksgiving. I know what day it is. Something in my voice must have registered. 9 o'clock, my office. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting across from Marcus Wade's desk. He looked tired, but alert. Mid-50s, graying hair, reading glasses on a chain. He studied my face. Alton, you look like you haven't slept. What happened? I placed the documents on his desk. Property deed. Promissory note. Bank statements printed at home, highlighted. I need to evict my daughter and son-in-law from my property. Marcus went very still. I need you to walk me through this. No emotional appeals, I said. Just the legal process. How fast can it happen? He picked up the documents, read slowly, asked questions. I answered each one precisely. Yes, the property was solely in my name. Yes, they'd been living there 4 years. No, there was no lease agreement. No, they'd never paid rent. Yes, I'd been covering all property taxes, insurance, maintenance. The promissory note, Marcus said, tapping it. This is enforceable. Signed, notarized, dated. Have they made any payments? 0. He leaned back in his chair. Texas law is straightforward here. Notice to vacate. 30 days minimum for residential. If they refuse, we file for eviction in justice court. Usually takes another 3 to 4 weeks. And the loan? Separate civil matter. We'd file suit for breach of contract. But Alton... He removed his glasses. I have to ask. Are you sure about this? This is your daughter. I met his eyes. Yesterday I went to Thanksgiving dinner at my own house. Leonard put food scraps in a plastic plate. On the floor. Henrietta watched and said nothing. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. Then he put his glasses back on. I'll draft the eviction notice today. We worked through the details. Marcus explained his approach. Formal eviction notice sent certified mail, plus a separate demand letter for the $80,000 loan repayment. Documentation of everything. Dates, amounts, communications. I want it all recorded, I said. Every dollar, every date. This will get ugly, Alton. It already is ugly. I'm just making it honest. An hour later, I signed the documents authorizing Marcus to proceed. He'd send the certified letters Monday. Today was Friday. The courts were closed. I stood to leave, then paused at his office door. What changed? Marcus asked. You've been helping them for years. I finally saw what they saw when they looked at me. Someone to use. Someone who'd accept anything to avoid being alone. And now? Now they'll learn what it costs to mistake patience for weakness. I walked out of his office building into bright Friday morning sun. Cold air, clear sky. My phone showed 5 missed calls from Henrietta, 3 voicemails I hadn't listened to. I opened a text message, typed carefully. You'll receive legal documents by Monday. Do not contact me until you've read them. I stood there on the sidewalk, thumb hovering over the send button. Once I pressed it, there would be no going back. The relationship I'd tried so hard to preserve would be gone, but maybe it had been gone for years and I'd just refused to see it. I pressed send. The weekend passed in silence. I worked. I didn't answer calls. I waited for Monday. Monday morning found me at my construction office, surrounded by project bids that needed review. The coffee grew cold in my mug while I stared at spreadsheets without seeing them. My phone sat face down on the desk, the same phone that had sent the warning text to Henrietta 3 days ago. Now it was her turn not to hear from me. The certified mail tracking app showed out for delivery at 8:15. I refreshed it every 10 minutes. 9:30, 9:45. Then, delivered. Signature obtained 9:47 a.m. I clicked the signature image. Leonard's scrawl, unmistakable. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Delivered. Signed for 9:47 a.m. Leonard's signature. I imagined him opening the envelope. The official letterhead. Marcus Wade, attorney at law. The words, notice to vacate, in bold at the top. 30 days. That's all the law required I give them. 30 days to undo 4 years of taking advantage. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. Leonard's name on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Put it on speaker and continued reviewing the materials invoice. Yes? Is this some kind of joke? He was laughing, but the sound had edges. This eviction thing? It's a legal notice, not a joke. Come on, Alton. The laugh died. You're really going to kick out your own daughter over a dinner? I'm reclaiming my property. You have 30 days. His voice changed, anger seeping through. You can't do this. We have rights. No, you have 30 days. Read the notice carefully. It explains everything. The call ended abruptly. He'd hung up on me. I set the phone down and returned to the invoice. He thought it was a bluff. He thought I'd fold. He was wrong. 2 hours later, Henrietta called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad, please. Her voice was thick with crying. Please don't do this. You watched him put food on the floor for me. You said nothing. I didn't know what to do. Leonard gets so angry when... Then you have a bigger problem than where you'll live next month. That's not fair. You're punishing me for his behavior? I kept my voice level. I'm ending an arrangement that stopped working. You're adults. Find your own place. We can't afford it. You know Leonard's business hasn't recovered? Then he should have thought about that before humiliating me in front of strangers. She tried different angles. Reminded me of childhood moments. Said I was all she had left after her mother died. Asked how I could abandon family. Every word was designed to make me feel guilty. It might have worked a week ago. What about the money demand? Her voice cracked. $80,000? Where would we get that? Leonard signed a promissory note. It's a legal debt. You're destroying us. No, I'm no longer funding you. There's a difference. I'm your daughter. Yes, and you chose your husband over your father. Now live with that choice. I ended the call this time. Another power shift. I sat in the quiet office surrounded by the documents of my legitimate business, built over 30 years of honest work. I felt something crack inside me, not my resolve. Something else, the part that still hoped she'd choose differently. That afternoon, Marcus called. Leonard's lawyer contacted me. Guy named Simmons. Discount practice, handles everything from traffic tickets to divorces. What did he say? Asked if you'd be willing to negotiate. I said no. Asked if there were any procedural errors in the notice. I said no. Asked for 60 days instead of 30. And? I told him the law requires 30 days, not 60. We're not negotiating extensions. Marcus explained the rest. Simmons had argued that Alton had a moral obligation to family. Marcus shut it down. This was property law, not family therapy. Leonard had apparently become agitated, demanding his rights as a long-term occupant. What did you tell him about rights? That without a rental agreement or payment history, his clients have minimal rights under Texas law. He didn't like hearing it. After we hung up, I pulled up Leonard's social media on my laptop, scrolled through recent posts, expensive restaurant dinners 2 weeks ago, photos of a new watch, looked like a Tag Heuer, 1500 minimum, vacation pictures from Colorado dated October, can't afford rent, but can afford a weekend in Colorado. Everything I needed to know. That evening, Leonard called again, different tone this time. The anger had been replaced by something that almost sounded like bargaining. I could hear Henrietta crying in the background. Alton, let's be reasonable. We can work something out. The time for working things out was before Thanksgiving. I'll apologize, okay? I'm sorry, it was stupid. Accepted. You still have 29 days to vacate. What about the money? I can't pay $80,000. Then I'll see you in court for the debt judgment. His voice took on a desperate edge. You'd really sue your own daughter. The note has your signature, not hers, but you're married, joint assets. Figure it out. Silence. Then his voice changed again, lower, threatening. You'll regret this, old man. You think you're so smart with your lawyer? 29 days. The clock is running. I hung up. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table, reviewing the documents Marcus had sent over, additional materials I had requested, payment history to the utilities, all in my name. Property tax records going back 20 years, every payment from my account, never Leonard's, insurance documentation, maintenance receipts. Every piece of paper reinforced my legal position. I picked up an old photograph from the box on the shelf. Henrietta's college graduation, her mother standing next to her, both of them smiling. Sarah had been so proud that day. I remembered the weight of the camera in my hands, remembered thinking we'd have years of moments like that. Was I wrong? The question came uninvited, unwelcome. No, I was finally right. After years of being used, I was finally right. My phone buzzed with a notification, social media alert. I glanced at the screen. Text from Marcus. Check this. He's going public. I opened the social media app and navigated to Leonard's profile. A new post, just minutes old. The text was loading. The post was long, angry, and every word was a lie. I read it twice, feeling my jaw tighten with each sentence. Then I called Marcus. We need to meet tomorrow, I said when he answered. He's declared war. The screen's glow illuminated my face in the darkening apartment. I read Leonard's post a third time, forcing myself to absorb every calculated word. The headline, My father-in-law is evicting his daughter into homelessness this Christmas. He'd crafted it carefully. Elderly man abandoning family. Daughter terrified. Winter eviction, cruel and heartless. Every phrase designed to paint me as a villain. What he didn't mention, Thanksgiving. The plastic plate. 4 years of rent-free living. The $80,000 loan he'd never repaid. What he did mention, my wife's devastated. Her elderly father. The winter cold. Nowhere to go. Photos attached. Henrietta looking distressed. The house exterior implying ownership. Them as a happy family at some restaurant. Carefully chosen truths arranged into a complete lie. One passage made my hands tighten on the phone. After years of helping maintain his property and caring for him after his wife's death, he's demanded we leave with only 30 days' notice. I've tried everything to reason with him, but he won't listen. Family should mean something, but not to everyone, I guess. The post already had 47 comments, mostly sympathetic, shared 12 times. Comments scrolled past. That's terrible. Sue him. What kind of father does this? Sending prayers for you both. 3 comments from people I knew, business contacts, neighbors. Every word was technically true, and every word was a complete lie. I called Marcus back immediately. How bad is this? For public perception? Pretty bad. For our legal case? Irrelevant. People I do business with are commenting, supporting him. Don't respond. Don't engage. That's what he wants. A public fight he can screenshot and use against you. So I just let him lie about me publicly? For now, yes. We respond in court, not on Facebook. Trust me on this, Alton. I barely slept. By sunrise, Leonard's post had 200 comments. At the construction office Tuesday morning, I tried to focus on work. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from concerned friends, angry messages from strangers who'd seen the post, shared and reshared. An old friend. Alton, what's going on? Saw Leonard's post? Call me. A former client. Disappointed to hear how you're treating family. Unknown number. You should be ashamed. That's your daughter. My secretary knocked on the door around 10. 3 people called asking if the business is stable. I looked up. What? The Meyer project client wants a meeting. Said something about discussing contractor reliability. The whispers had started. If he'd do that to family? What about business commitments? Then Henrietta posted her own message. Shorter, but more emotional. Wounded daughter who didn't understand her father's cruelty. The key line, I never thought my own father would choose money over his only child. She'd attached a photo, childhood picture of the 2 of us at a park, her maybe 7 years old, sitting on my shoulders, both of us laughing. I stared at that photo for a long time. More people took Leonard's side. No one knew the full story. My instincts screamed to explain, defend, counterattack. Marcus's advice echoed, don't engage. Around noon, Deborah Chen called, my bookkeeper for the construction company, access to all financial records. Organized, meticulous. Never called unless something was genuinely wrong. Alton, I need to show you something. It might be nothing. What is it? I was reconciling accounts and noticed discrepancies. Going back about 18 months. My stomach tightened. What kind of discrepancies? Remember when Leonard said he could help with vendor outreach? You gave him some contact information? Yes. He said he had marketing experience. Silence on the line. Then, can you come to the office? I need to show you this in person. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Deborah's desk while she pulled up files on her computer. I found irregularities while preparing tax documents. She turned the monitor toward me. Leonard was using your business contacts. He posed as your partner or representative. The screen showed emails, Leonard's name with my company's signature line. He took deposits from 3 clients for jobs that were never performed. She clicked through the evidence. Client 1, $12,000 for a home addition. Client 2, $8,500 for commercial remodel. Client 3, $15,000 for multi-unit renovation. Total, $35,500. Why didn't these people contact me directly? They tried. Leonard told them you were semi-retired, that he handled new contracts. Remember when you gave him email access to help with that supplier issue? I remembered. A temporary login 18 months ago when I'd been overwhelmed with a material shortage. He used my business to steal? I have all the emails. He signed them Leonard Evans Partner Relations. People assumed he was legitimate family business. My hands went cold. What else? Deborah hesitated, then clicked to another folder. I found something else while pulling property records for taxes. Leonard filed paperwork with the county 9 months ago. She opened a PDF. Official county document. Gift deed, transferring the house from me to Leonard. It required my notarized signature. The signature looked close to mine, but the notary stamp was fake. Why did this fail? County clerk noticed the notary license number didn't match their database. Paperwork was rejected, flagged as suspicious. They sent a letter to the property address, the house, where Leonard received mail. He intercepted it, I said. Looks that way. No criminal charges were filed because you never saw it, never reported it. I stared at the forged document. He tried to steal my house, with a forged signature. Yes, and with the social media campaign he's running? Deborah met my eyes. Alton, he's trying to bury you before you can expose him. Within an hour, I was back in Marcus's office with Deborah's documentation. He reviewed everything methodically, the emails, the deposit records, the failed deed transfer. His expression shifted from concern to grim satisfaction. This changes everything. Wire fraud, forgery, theft by deception. These are felonies. What about his social media campaign? It becomes evidence of consciousness of guilt. He's trying to poison public opinion before his crimes surface. So what do? We file a police report today, and we contact the victims. They'll need to file complaints too. He'll say I'm retaliating because of the eviction. Let him. The evidence speaks for itself. Signatures, notary fraud, client testimony. This isn't he said, she said anymore. Leonard had made a calculation. Destroy my reputation so no one would believe me when the truth came out. He hadn't counted on one thing. I kept records. I always kept records. Marcus began drafting the police report. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the first name on Deborah's list. Thomas Green. Home addition job, $12,000. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Green, this is Alton Evans from Evans Construction. We need to talk about Leonard. A bitter laugh. He screwed you too. Worse than you know. Can we meet tomorrow? Been waiting 2 years for someone to listen. Tomorrow works. I left Marcus's office with a folder of evidence under my arm. Walked through downtown Austin in the December afternoon sun. Past a coffee shop where someone sat with a laptop open, reading something on the screen. Leonard's post. The person shook their head in disapproval. At me. Let them judge. By the end of the week, they'd know the truth. I walked to my truck and pulled out my phone. Dialed the Austin Police Department non-emergency line. When the officer answered, I said 5 words that changed everything. I need to report fraud. The police station smelled like burned coffee and industrial cleaner. Thomas Green sat down beside me in the waiting area, and we didn't need to say anything. We both knew what Leonard had taken. He carried a manila folder, same tan color as mine. Physical evidence of parallel crimes. Detective Sarah Morrison called us back 20 minutes later. Mid-40s, professional suit, wedding ring, reading glasses on a chain. Her office was small, interview table, recording equipment visible on a shelf, case files stacked against one wall. She gestured for us to sit and opened her notepad. Mr. Evans, walk me through your relationship with Leonard. What's his last name? I paused. I don't actually know. He never took Henrietta's name, and she never mentioned his. Morrison looked up from her notes. Your son-in-law, and you don't know his surname? I realize how that sounds. I trusted him because my daughter did. That's usually how these cases work. She turned to Thomas. Mr. Green, you're the first victim on record? We spent the next hour presenting evidence. I laid out Deborah's financial records, the fraudulent emails with my company's signature, the failed deed transfer with its fake notary stamp. Thomas showed his contract signed, Leonard Evans, partner relations, deposit receipts, a folder of unanswered emails and call logs. Morrison photographed each document, entered a case number into her computer, logged every date, every transaction. She worked methodically. Every paper got logged. Every date got verified. Mr. Green, why didn't you report this 2 years ago? I tried. Was told it was a civil matter, sue in small claims court. $12,000 didn't seem worth the legal fees. Using someone else's business identity changes it. That's theft by deception. Morrison made notes. How many others are there? At least 2 more, I said. My bookkeeper found them. Morrison made calls while we waited. Speakerphone, professional courtesy so we could hear. Maria Castellano answered on the second ring. Yes, she remembered Leonard. Yes, she'd paid a deposit. $8,500 for a commercial remodel. No, the work was never done. She'd filed a complaint 3 years ago. Nothing came of it. James Wu had a similar story. $15,000 for a multi-unit renovation. Promises, then silence. Another dismissed complaint. That's a pattern, Morrison said after the third call. He specifically targeted older clients. Used your reputation as cover. The realization settled over me like cold water. He didn't just steal money. He stole my name, my reputation. 30 years of honest work, and he wore it like a mask. By early afternoon, Detective Morrison had enough for an interview request. I was back at my construction office, trying to focus on a supplier invoice, when Marcus called. Morrison contacted Leonard. Voluntary interview scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10. Will they arrest him? Not immediately. They'll interview, see if he admits anything, offers explanation. He'll lie. Probably. But they have documents. Physical evidence. His lies will just dig deeper. That evening, Henrietta called. Her voice was shaking. Dad, the police called Leonard. They want to interview him about fraud. I know. I filed the report. Stunned silence. Then, you went to the police? 3 people lost over $35,000 because Leonard used my company name to steal from them. That's not possible. Leonard wouldn't. I have emails, bank records, their testimony. It's not up for debate. You're trying to put him in jail. No, I'm reporting crimes. The legal system will decide the rest. She didn't hang up immediately. Long silence. I could hear Leonard shouting in the background, words I couldn't make out. Dad, how many people? First time she'd asked for facts instead of making accusations. At least 4, maybe more. She ended the call without another word. The interview lasted 3 hours. Marcus called me when it was over. I'd been at my office all morning trying to work, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Leonard arrived with Simmons. Initial strategy was deny everything, claim the documents are fabricated. And? Morrison presented emails with timestamps, IP addresses matching his devices. He shifted to calling it marketing help, said there was a misunderstanding about authority. I closed the project file on my desk. What about the forged deed? Claimed he found it like that. Said he was asking questions about property transfer. Didn't know the signature was fake. Marcus's voice carried barely concealed satisfaction. Morrison said he was sweating through his shirt by the end. Did he admit anything? Not directly, but his attorney looked sick. Simmons knows Leonard's lying, and he knows Morrison knows. What happens now? She's referring it to the DA's office. Probably takes a few weeks for a charging decision. But Alton? This is serious now. Wire fraud, forgery, these are felonies. Later that day, Deborah called again. Found another one. Contractor named Steve Paulson. Leonard approached him claiming to be your nephew. Needed equipment rental. $6,000 worth of tools that were never returned. How many more are there? I don't know yet. I'm finding threads everywhere. Every contact list Leonard ever had access to, I'm cross-referencing. Keep looking. I want every victim to get justice. Alton, how did you not see this? The question I'd been asking myself for days. I trusted family. He counted on that. Late that evening, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Henrietta stood outside, alone. First time I'd seen her without Leonard in months. She looked exhausted, eyes red from crying. She didn't ask to come in, just stood in the doorway. Is it true? All of it? Yes. Leonard said you're lying, making it up to justify evicting us. I walked to my kitchen table and picked up the folder Morrison had given me. Copies of everything. Police reports, victim statements, bank records. I held it out to her. Read them yourself. She stared at the folder, but didn't take it. I can't. If I look, I have to. I have to see. You already see. That's why you're here. She stood there, arms wrapped around herself against the December cold. The porch light cast shadows across her face. He's your husband. I understand loyalty. But loyalty to a lie isn't love, sweetheart. It's just fear. She left without taking the folder, but she came alone. First independent action in years. The next day, Marcus received court scheduling. Eviction hearing set for mid-March, approximately 10 weeks out. Leonard would have to respond to the fraud investigation. Criminal charges decision estimated at 4 to 6 weeks. Leonard's attorney filed a motion to delay the eviction, claimed undue hardship and retaliatory eviction. The motion included copies of Leonard's social media posts as evidence of my intent to harm rather than reclaim property. Judge denied it within 48 hours. The facts didn't support a retaliation claim. Through business contacts, I heard Leonard was trying to borrow $80,000, approaching former friends, distant relatives, even casual acquaintances. Each refusal tightened the noose. He was drowning, and every hand he reached for pulled away. February arrived, cold and gray. I marked the March court date on my kitchen calendar with a red pen. The phone rang while I was making coffee. Marcus, district attorney, filed formal charges. Wire fraud, forgery, theft by deception. When does he get arraigned? Next week. But here's the interesting part. The eviction hearing got moved up. Judge consolidated it with the criminal preliminary hearing. What does that mean? It means Leonard faces everything at once. The house, the money, the crimes. I looked at the calendar, counted forward. 3 weeks until court. My phone buzzed with a text. Henrietta, can we talk? Without Leonard. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. My daughter, asking to talk without her husband. I typed 1 word back. Tomorrow. Then I sat in the quiet apartment and wondered if I'd just won or if everyone had lost. The answer, I knew, would come in that courtroom. 3 weeks. The calendar seemed to mock me with how slowly time moves when you're waiting for justice. 3 weeks of waiting compressed into this moment. The courthouse steps felt steeper than they should have. Marcus carried the evidence binders like they weighed nothing. They weighed everything. Leonard and his attorneys stood across the plaza. Leonard stared at me with barely contained hostility. No more pretense of the wounded family man, at least not when we were alone. Inside, the hallway smelled like floor polish and old wood, sterile fluorescent lighting, wooden benches, the distant echo of proceedings from other courtrooms. Leonard and Simmons took seats on one side. Marcus and I sat opposite. Henrietta arrived last, alone. She walked down the center of the hallway and sat on a bench between both sides. Physical metaphor for her torn loyalty. Leonard gestured for her to join him. She didn't move. He greeted people passing by with a sad smile. Whispered to Simmons loud enough for others to hear, "I just want my family back." When he touched Henrietta's shoulder, she flinched. Subtle, but I saw it. The bailiff appeared in the doorway. Evans versus Leonard and Evans, the formal naming of conflict. We filed into the courtroom. Modern, small, judge's bench elevated. The gallery was nearly empty. Thomas Green sat in the back row, supporting me. One young man I didn't recognize sat behind Leonard's table. As we entered, Leonard leaned close to Henrietta. "Remember what we talked about?" Her voice barely carried 3 feet. "I remember everything." He missed the double meaning. I didn't. Judge Catherine Rhodes took the bench without ceremony, reviewed the file while we settled. No preamble. "This is an eviction proceeding consolidated with preliminary matters related to pending criminal charges. Mr. Wade, you're representing the property owner?" Marcus stood. "Yes, Your Honor." What followed was methodical demolition. Marcus laid out the property deed. Sole ownership, Elton Evans. Tax records showing every payment from my account. Utility bills in my name, my payment. No rental agreement, no payment history from the occupants. He presented it like building blocks, each document supporting the next. No emotion, just facts. 4 years of free occupancy with a calculated value of $72,000. Additionally, an unpaid promissory note for $80,000. The occupants have no legal right to remain. Judge Rhodes turned to Simmons. "Do you dispute these facts?" "Your Honor, we argue this eviction is retaliatory in nature." "Based on what? The criminal investigation your client is facing?" "Based on a family disagreement that escalated. A disagreement doesn't create tenant rights where none exist. Do you have documents showing your clients paid rent or have ownership interest?" Simmons called Leonard to testify. Leonard's strategy became clear immediately. Frame himself as devoted son-in-law helping after his wife's death. He claimed he'd maintained the property, paid for improvements, cared for Alton during his grief. His voice trembled with practiced emotion. "Mr. Leonard, why do you believe Mr. Evans is evicting you?" "I think he's lonely, angry, taking it out on us because he can't accept his wife is gone." Marcus objected. "Relevance, Your Honor?" "Mr. Evans's emotional state doesn't change property law." Sustained. "Mr. Leonard, do you have any documents showing you paid rent or have ownership interest?" It was understood. Family doesn't need paperwork. Family might not. Law does. Marcus introduced the fraud evidence, technically not part of the eviction case, but the judge had allowed it, as character and credibility evidence. The forged deed attempt, the fraudulent business emails, victim statements. Leonard's performance cracked. "Mr. Leonard, did you attempt to transfer property ownership using forged documents?" The criminal case is separate. I don't have to answer. "Did you represent yourself as partner of Evans Construction to obtain client deposits?" Simmons stood. "Objection, Fifth Amendment rights." "He can refuse to answer," Judge Rhodes said, "but this is a civil proceeding. I can draw inferences." Leonard sat silent, sweating. No further questions. Judge Rhodes called a 15-minute recess. In the hallway, Leonard cornered Henrietta near the water fountain. "You need to testify. Tell her how your father abandoned us." "I don't think I can do that." "What?" "I saw the emails, Leonard. Dad showed me. You used his company to steal." He grabbed her arm. "Those were business decisions he doesn't understand." She pulled away. "You forged his signature on our house. To protect us. To secure our future. By stealing from him?" His voice rose. People in the hallway turned to watch. "You're as pathetic as he is. I should have left you years ago." The mask had fallen completely. Henrietta's face showed shock, hurt, but also something new. Clarity. Leonard saw he'd lost control. tried to soften. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm stressed. You know I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every word. She walked away from him, sat on a bench alone, covered her face with her hands. First time Leonard's true self had shown in front of witnesses. Court reconvened. The young man who'd been sitting behind Leonard was gone. Leonard sat alone now. Henrietta remained in the gallery, not at his table. Judge Rhodes had made her decision. This case is straightforward. Mr. Evans owns the property outright. The occupants have no lease, have paid no rent, and have no legal basis to remain. The evidence of attempted fraud and the pending criminal charges speak to credibility and good faith, or lack thereof. The eviction is granted. Occupants must vacate within 14 days. Regarding the promissory note, that's a separate civil matter. Mr. Evans may pursue collection through appropriate channels. Leonard stood. Your Honor, please, we have nowhere to go. 14 days is more than adequate to find alternative housing. Next case. The gavel fell. A single sharp sound. Leonard stood frozen. Simmons gathered his papers quickly, avoiding eye contact with his client. Marcus shook my hand professionally. Outside, Henrietta sat on a bench in the March sun. Leonard stormed past both of us without looking back. I sat down beside my daughter. We didn't speak for a moment. You won. The court ruled fairly. That's not the same thing. The things he said to me in there. I heard. You were right about all of it. I didn't want to be right. I wanted to be wrong. She stood uncertain, lost. Where are you staying? I asked. I don't know yet. Not with him. I pulled out a business card, wrote an address on the back. This is a short-term rental property I own. It's empty. Stay there while you figure things out. No rent for first month. She took the card. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at the card, then at me, and I saw my daughter again for the first time in years. Not Leonard's wife. Not someone's possession. Just Henrietta. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded and walked to my truck. Marcus waited by his car, phone already out. The DA wants to talk, he said. Leonard's attorney is asking about a plea deal. This is moving fast now. I looked back at the courthouse. Leonard was nowhere in sight. Henrietta still sat on that bench, card in hand, deciding who she'd be next. I got in my truck and started the engine. 14 days until they had to leave, but I suspected Leonard would be gone much sooner than that. I'd barely set the court documents down when my phone rang. Unknown number, Austin area code. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but something, instinct maybe, made me answer. Mr. Evans, you don't know me, but I know Leonard, or I thought I did. The voice was professional, with controlled anger underneath. I'm Thomas Green. I was at the courthouse today. You were in the gallery? Yes. When your attorney mentioned the fraud charges, something clicked. I need to tell you about L&T Digital Solutions. My hand tightened on the phone. That was Leonard's startup, the one I invested $80,000 in. That's what he told you. But there were two investors, you and me. He took $35,000 from me for equipment and software. Never saw a dollar back. The pieces connected. When? 2 years ago. He approached me with this revolutionary app idea. Showed projections, market research. All fabricated, I realize now. He used your investment as proof of viability. Said my father-in-law believes in it. The company existed 6 months. Produced nothing. Dissolved quietly. Why didn't you pursue it? 35,000 hurt, but I'm not broke. Chalked it up to bad investment. But hearing he did the same thing to construction clients, used your name, I realized it was deliberate. He's facing charges already. Wire fraud, forgery. Add mine to the list. I want him accountable for every lie. I gave him Marcus's number and called my attorney immediately after. This is good, Alton. Marcus's voice carried energy. Well, not good, but legally strong. It shows sophistication. Premeditation. How many people did he hurt? We're up to 7 documented victims now. Total damages exceeding 100,000. The number settled in my chest like a stone. I brought him into my life, introduced him to my business contacts. I made this possible. No, he made his choices. You were a resource he exploited. There's a difference. The next morning brought a different kind of call. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor near the property. Elderly woman who'd lived on that street for 40 years. Alton, dear, I see a U-Haul at your house. Are they taking your things? What things? Furniture. I remember that dining set. You had it before they moved in? The antique desk from your office? Realization hit like cold water. I'm on my way. Call the police. Tell them there's a theft in progress. I broke 3 traffic laws getting there. Didn't care. The U-Haul sat in the driveway, back door open. Leonard directed 2 men loading furniture. My furniture. The dining set that had belonged to my parents. The desk I'd refinished myself. Tools from the garage. Lawn equipment. He was selling my property to raise money. I blocked the driveway with my truck. Leonard saw me. His face shifted from panic to defiance. The moving helpers stopped working, sensing trouble. That's my property. Put it back. It's in my house, my possession. Your house? You have 13 days left. That furniture predates you by 20 years. Prove it. Photos. Receipts. My parents' estate documents. Want to add theft to your charges? One of the movers looked at Leonard. Man, you said this was your stuff. It is. He's lying. Deputy Hayes arrived, same officer who'd handled the eviction documentation. He took statements while I pulled up photos on my phone. Same furniture visible in dated family pictures. Christmas photos from before Sarah died. Images time-stamped years before Leonard entered our lives. Mrs. Chen provided witness testimony. She'd watched me move that furniture into the house 2 decades ago. The helpers confirmed Leonard hired them, claimed ownership of everything. Hayes told them to unload everything back inside. Leonard tried to argue, his voice rising. Keep it up and I'll arrest you for obstruction, Hayes warned. Leonard deflated, watched his escape plan unravel. Mr. Leonard, I'm documenting this incident. The DA will be notified. You attempted to steal and sell property that isn't yours. Leonard turned to me, vicious. You've destroyed my life. For what? Your precious house? You destroyed your own life. I just stopped letting you destroy mine. Hayes closed his notepad. Mr. Leonard, I suggest you focus on vacating peacefully. You're running out of goodwill with the legal system. The movers left unpaid. Leonard had no money. The furniture sat back inside the house. Deputy Hayes filed his report and drove away. Leonard stood on the porch. I stood by my truck. He looked at me with pure hatred. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just finality. I'd spent months being angry. Now I just wanted him gone. The next 6 days were quiet. Too quiet. I hired a locksmith to change the locks on moving day, arranged for a sheriff escort on eviction day. Marcus reported that Leonard's attorney was negotiating a plea deal, facing 3 to 5 years probation minimum, restitution to all victims. Henrietta texted me, staying with her friend Sarah needed time. Didn't ask about Leonard. I respected her space. My daughter was learning to stand alone. I wouldn't interrupt that. On the 14th day, I arrived at the house at dawn. Deputy Hayes was already there. By chance, same officer again. The house looked abandoned. Windows dark. No car in the driveway. Leonard had left during the night. No forwarding address. We entered together, documenting the condition. The house was ransacked. Holes punched in walls. Carpet stained with what looked like oil. Kitchen cabinets pulled off hinges. Deliberate destruction. Leonard's final revenge. But he was gone. In the master bedroom, I found a single piece of paper on the floor. Handwritten note. You chose him. You'll regret it. I'll be back when you realize your mistake. Addressed to Henrietta. Threat and promise combined. I photographed it. Texted a copy to Marcus. I stood in the empty, damaged house, calculating repair costs. Several $1,000s. Leonard did this knowing he'd never pay for it. Small price for freedom, I thought. My phone rang. Henrietta calling. First call in 2 weeks. I stood in the ruined kitchen and answered. Her voice was small, uncertain. Dad, can we meet? I need to talk to you about something. In the background, I heard it. Leonard's voice, distant but unmistakable. She was with him. My stomach dropped. Where are you? The line went silent for 3 seconds that felt like hours. A coffee shop, neutral ground. He showed up and... Dad, I don't know what to do. I grabbed my keys, already moving toward the door. Text me the address. I'm coming now. Don't leave with him. Promise me. I promise, she whispered. The call ended. I ran. Through the plate glass window, I could see the geometry of tension. Henrietta at one table, Leonard nearby at another, and a young woman I didn't recognize sitting between them like a buffer. I pushed through the door. The bell chimed. All 3 turned. Leonard's face hardened. Henrietta looked relieved. The young woman stood protectively. You called him? Leonard's voice carried wounded disbelief. I thought we were talking privately. I told you I was calling my father. This is between us. Our marriage. I looked at Henrietta. Are you okay? Yes. Sarah's been here the whole time. The young woman, Sarah, nodded. He showed up 20 minutes ago, asked to talk. Henry said only in public with me present. Leonard turned to me. This doesn't concern you. This is between me and my wife. Then why is she scared? She's not scared. She's confused. Because you've been poisoning her against me. Henrietta's voice was quiet but steady. Dad didn't poison me. You showed me who you are, in that courthouse hallway. I was upset, under pressure. That wasn't the real me. I stepped closer. Which version is the real you? The one who forged my signature? Who stole from clients? Who put food on the floor? Leonard stood towering over the table. Sarah moved closer to Henrietta. Other patrons glanced over. Everything I did for us. For our future. You stole, you lied, you hurt people. I made mistakes, but Henrietta knows I love her. That's what matters. Henrietta stood now, facing him directly. Do you love me? Of course I do. How can you even ask? You called me pathetic. In front of strangers. You said you should have left me years ago. I was angry. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant it. Her voice was stronger now, steadier. I watched my daughter find her spine in real time. I've been thinking about that moment. What you said. How you looked at me. Leonard softened his tone, manipulative sweetness oozing through. Baby, please. I was wrong. Let me make it right. You can't. Because you weren't wrong about one thing. You should have left me years ago. Because you never loved me. You loved what I gave you access to. That's not true. My father's house, his money, his business connections. That's what you married. Henrietta, listen to yourself. He's manipulating you. No, you're manipulating me. Or trying to. But I see it now. I stood back, didn't intervene, didn't add commentary. This was her moment, her fight. I'd spent months fighting for her. Now I needed to let her fight for herself. Leonard switched tactics. Vulnerability. Tears forming in his eyes. I have nothing. Nowhere to go. You're all I have. He reached for her hand. She pulled away. You have nothing because you stole from people. Because you lied. Those are your choices. Our choices. We were in this together. No. I was your shield. You hid behind we and us while you did whatever you wanted. His voice cracked. Fine. You want me to beg? I'm begging. Give me another chance. I gave you thousands of chances. Every time you were cruel. Every time you lied. Every time you made me feel small. I gave you another chance. Sarah touched Henrietta's arm gently. Henri, we can leave now. Yes, we can. As Henrietta gathered her jacket, Leonard's face transformed. The vulnerability vanished. Cold rage replaced it. He grabbed her wrist as she passed. I moved forward. Sarah pulled out her phone. You walk away. You'll regret it. His voice was low, menacing. Henrietta pulled free. Is that a threat? It's a reality. You think you can make it without me? You're weak. You've always been weak. Maybe I was, but I'm learning. He turned to me. This is your fault. You destroyed our family. There was no family. There was a hostage situation. The barista approached. Is there a problem here? Sarah held up her phone. I've been recording since he grabbed her. Leonard saw the phone, realized the situation, backed away. You'll all regret this, he muttered. He walked out, didn't look back. Through the window, I watched him get into a beaten car and drive away. Henrietta sank into her chair, shaking. Sarah sat beside her, supportive hand on her shoulder. I remained standing, giving them space. We sat there for 20 minutes before anyone spoke. Sarah excused herself, gave us privacy, left Henrietta and me alone at the table. I'm sorry, Dad. For what? For not seeing it, for not believing you, for Thanksgiving. You were in a difficult position. I chose him. Over you. When I should have... I interrupted gently. You chose what felt safe. Loyalty, commitment, those aren't bad things. Even to the wrong person. Sometimes we can't see they're wrong until we're ready. I couldn't force you to see it. She cried. real tears, not performance. I was afraid of being alone. After Mom died and then marrying Leonard, I forgot how to be just me. I couldn't watch him destroy you, even if stopping him looked like cruelty. Did you hate me when I defended him? No, I was frustrated, angry, but not at you, at the situation, at him for manipulating you. I was so stupid. You were hopeful. That's different. Hope isn't stupidity. What do I do now? Whatever you need. Divorce, rebuild, figure out who Henrietta is without anyone else defining her. She pulled out her phone, started searching divorce attorney websites. Can Marcus recommend someone? I want to do this right. Legally. Cleanly. I nodded approval. She removed her wedding ring, placed it on the table between us, stared at it for a long moment. Then she slid it across to me. Can you hold this? I don't want it, but I'm not ready to throw it away. I pocketed the ring without comment. We stood to leave together. We walked out of the coffee shop into late afternoon sun. Sarah waited by her car, gave Henrietta a reassuring nod. As I unlocked my truck, Henrietta paused. Dad? Can I come over for dinner sometime? Just us? I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been tight for years. Any time. You're always welcome. She smiled. Fragile but real. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. DA offered Leonard a plea deal. 3 years probation, full restitution to all victims. Guilty plea to felony fraud. He has 48 hours to decide. If he refuses, they're going to trial. I showed Henrietta the message. She read it, then looked at me with clear eyes. Good, she said. Just that. Good. We got in our separate vehicles and drove away. I watched her car in my rearview mirror until she turned toward Sarah's apartment. The girl who'd watched her husband humiliate me on Thanksgiving was gone. The woman who'd stood up to him in that coffee shop, that was my daughter. Finally. 6 weeks had passed since Leonard rejected the plea deal. 6 weeks of depositions, testimony, and waiting. When Marcus called that Tuesday morning, I knew before I answered. The coffee pot was brewing, normal routine continuing through upheaval. Guilty. All 3 counts. The jury wasn't out long. I set down my mug. How did he react? Stood there like a statue. His attorney looked relieved it was over. What happens now? Pre-sentencing investigation. Judge Rhodes will consider victim impact statements, restitution amounts, criminal history. Sentencing in 2 weeks. What's the likely outcome? 3 to 5 years probation, full restitution to all victims. That's about $115,000 total. Felony conviction on his record permanently. I felt no triumph, just finality. I'd wanted accountability, not destruction. But Leonard had chosen his path at every turn. Marcus was coordinating with the other victims. Thomas Green, Maria Castellano, James Wu, and the others would receive restitution through a payment plan. The DA's office required Leonard to pay in installments over his probation period. If he failed, probation would be violated. Possible jail time. Thomas called that afternoon. I heard. Guilty verdict. Yes. Marcus says restitution is part of the sentence. I don't care about the money anymore. I care that he can't do this to anyone else. Felony record will follow him. Every job application, background check. Good. Maybe that'll teach him consequences exist. Later that day, Henrietta called. Her voice was subdued. Dad, I heard about the verdict. I thought you might. I don't know how to feel. You don't have to feel any particular way. It's complicated. Part of me is relieved. Part of me feels guilty. Like I should have... Should have what? Stopped him years ago? We all miss the signs. I was married to him. I should have known. People hide who they are, even from those closest to them. She'd moved into a small one-bedroom apartment. Started a bookkeeping job at a local firm. The divorce papers had been filed. Leonard hadn't contested. She was attending therapy twice a week. For the first time since Mom died, I'm figuring out who I am. How are you managing? Financially? It's tight, but it's mine. I'm not depending on anyone. I'm proud of you for doing this on your own. A pause. Can we have dinner sometime? When things settle? I'd like that, when you're ready. I need to earn it, your trust. I know that. You're earning it now, by standing on your own. The 2 weeks passed quickly. Work kept me busy. The sentencing hearing arrived on a Thursday morning. I attended with Marcus, sat in the gallery. Several victims were present: Thomas Green, Maria Castellano, others I recognized from documents. Henrietta had chosen not to attend. Leonard was brought in wearing a county jail jumpsuit. He looked diminished, weight loss, haunted expression. His attorney made a brief statement about accepting responsibility, asked for leniency. Thomas Green spoke first, described the financial damage, the emotional betrayal of trust. Maria Castellano, an elderly woman, explained how the fraud had depleted her savings. The DA read statements from other victims who couldn't attend. I didn't speak. Marcus had advised that my civil resolution was sufficient. Judge Rhodes reviewed her notes, then addressed Leonard. Mr. Leonard, you engaged in a sophisticated, calculated scheme to defraud multiple victims. You exploited family connections, business relationships, and the trust of elderly clients. Your presentence report shows no prior criminal history, which works in your favor. However, the breadth and duration of your fraud demonstrates clear premeditation. I sentence you to 5 years supervised probation. Conditions: full restitution to all victims totaling $115,000, payable in monthly installments. Community service, 500 hours. You are prohibited from engaging in any business transactions exceeding $1,000 without probation officer approval. Violation of any term results in immediate incarceration of up to 3 years. Do you understand? Leonard's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. As he was led out, he made eye contact with me. No words, just a hollow stare. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity. Just closure. The man who'd humiliated me on Thanksgiving was gone. What remained was just consequence. Outside the courthouse, Marcus and I stood on the steps. Bright summer day, heavy contrast to the proceedings inside. It's over, officially. The house repairs cost me $8,000. The legal fees. $15,000. I know, but you got the house back. The debt acknowledged, and he's on record as a felon. $23,000 to learn my son-in-law was a criminal. $23,000 to stop him from taking everything. Perspective matters. Restitution payments would begin next month. Leonard had to maintain employment, report monthly to his probation officer. The divorce finalization was expected within 60 days. Marcus handed me a final documentation folder. Keep these. In case he violates probation, you'll need to show payment history. I took the folder, knowing I'd file it away and try to forget. I drove home through Austin traffic. Summer heat shimmered on the pavement. The radio played mindlessly. I turned it off, preferred silence. 7 months ago, I'd walked out of my own house with food scraps on a plastic plate on the floor. Today, a judge had declared Leonard a felon. Between those 2 moments lay months of anger, legal battles, and family destruction. Was it worth it? The question haunted me. My phone buzzed at a red light. Text from Henrietta. I know today was sentencing. Are you okay? I stared at the message, then typed, Yes. Are you? Her reply came quickly. Getting there. Can we talk this weekend? I typed, Sunday dinner. My place. I'll cook. Her response. A simple heart emoji. Tentative reconnection. I arrived home and parked in the driveway. Looked at the house. Repairs completed. Lawn maintained. Property mine again. Pulled out my keys and walked to the door. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The house was quiet. Empty, but mine. I set down my keys, loosened my tie, walked to the kitchen. The coffee maker sat on the counter, ready for tomorrow's routine. Through the window, I could see my neighbor, Brian, working in his garden. Normal life. Continuing? I pulled out my phone and opened a new document. Typed a title. When Family Becomes a Threat. How I Protected My Life. If my story could help one other person recognize the warning signs, maybe the pain had purpose. I started writing. The words came easier than I expected, maybe because I'd lived every one of them. Outside, the summer sun was setting. Inside, I was finally home. The August heat hadn't broken yet, but at 6:30 in the morning, the air was still bearable. I stood on my front porch, the same porch where I'd stood last Thanksgiving, locked out of my own life, and felt the difference. 9 months. That's how long it took to reclaim my life. Leonard was serving probation, making his restitution payments. Marcus sent quarterly updates. Henrietta was living independently, working, healing slowly. The house had been repaired. My business was stable. Deborah still managed the books diligently. The financial cost, $23,000 in legal fees and repairs. But the $80,000 promissory note was being repaid monthly. Perspective mattered. Brian appeared in his adjacent garden, noticed me with my coffee. "Morning, Alton. Nice to see you looking relaxed." "Feels strange, being relaxed. I remember last fall, you looked like you were carrying the world. What changed?" I put it down, realized I didn't have to carry other people's choices. "Your daughter, she doing okay?" "Better. We had dinner last week. She's finding her way. Takes strength to do what you did, setting boundaries with family. Didn't feel like strength at the time, felt like survival." My phone buzzed. Message from Henrietta. Photo attachment, her at a desk with an Employee of the Month certificate. Brief text, small victories. "Dinner this Sunday?" I studied the photo. My daughter smiling, genuine happiness. No strain. I typed, "Proud of you. Sunday works. My place or restaurant?" Her reply, "Your place. I'll bring dessert. Real dessert, not store-bought. Looking forward to it." We'd had dinner 6 times in 3 months. Still careful with each other. Still rebuilding. She never asked about Leonard. I never mentioned him. That chapter was closed for both of us. Sometimes I saw glimpses of the daughter I'd known before. Quick wit, genuine laugh. Other times I saw someone new. Someone stronger. An hour later, Marcus called. "Just wanted to update you. Leonard's made 3 restitution payments. On time." "That's good. Divorce finalized last week. Henrietta got the paperwork." She mentioned it. Seemed relieved more than anything. "All civil matters resolved. Unless he violates probation, you're done with courts." "Thank you, Marcus, for everything. You made it easy. You had documentation, patience, and you never let emotion override strategy." Didn't always feel strategic. The best strategies rarely do. After Marcus hung up, I returned to my laptop. I'd been writing a detailed account of my experience. Not for revenge or public shaming, but as a warning and guide. The document title read, "When Family Becomes a Threat, Recognizing Financial Abuse and Protecting Your Assets." I'd outlined the warning signs: family members living rent-free indefinitely, loans without paperwork, isolation from other relationships, the legal protections, documentation, property records, promissory notes, the emotional manipulation tactics, the steps to take. I wasn't writing this for me. I was writing it for the 70-year-old man somewhere who felt trapped, for the elderly woman whose children were waiting for her to die so they could inherit, for anyone who thinks family means accepting abuse. I paused, looking at a framed photo on my desk. Young Henrietta, maybe 5 years old, sitting on my shoulders at a park, both of us laughing. The same photo I'd looked at during the darkest moments. That little girl still existed somewhere in my memory. But she wasn't coming back. The woman Henrietta had become, flawed, damaged, healing, was real. And I could love her without letting her destroy me. That was the lesson. Love doesn't require self-destruction. The afternoon sun baked the porch boards. I moved to the shade, coffee long cold. Reviewed what I'd written, saved the document. Considered sharing it online with elder support groups, with attorneys who handle these cases. People had asked me, was it worth it? Destroying your relationship with your daughter over a house? They didn't understand. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd stopped participating in my own destruction. The relationship that existed before, built on me giving, her taking, Leonard manipulating, that needed to die. What we were building now, that was real. Hard, painful, uncertain, but real. I prepared a simple dinner for myself, sat at the dining room table, the same table Leonard had tried to steal, ate slowly, peacefully, alone but not lonely. After dinner, I walked to the hall closet, pulled out a plastic bag I'd kept hidden. Inside, the plastic plate from Thanksgiving. I'd kept it as a reminder, but I didn't need it anymore. I took it to the outside trash bin, dropped it in without ceremony. The sound it made hitting the bottom was ordinary, just trash. That's all it had ever been. I returned to the porch as the sun set. The neighborhood settled into evening. Kids playing, dogs barking. Normal summer sounds. My phone showed an unread message from Henrietta. Photo of ingredients for Sunday's dessert. I smiled. Texted back a thumbs up. I'd spent 9 months fighting for justice. What I'd found was something different. Not revenge, not even victory. Just freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from false obligations, from the weight of other people's choices. Brian waved from across the fence. Poker night Thursday. You in? I nodded. I'm in. Life continuing. Normal, unremarkable, mine. I stayed on that porch until the streetlights came on, watching my neighborhood exist around me. Somewhere across Austin, Leonard was living whatever life his choices had built, and it had nothing to do with me. Somewhere closer, Henrietta was probably making her dessert, practicing recipes, building competence in small ways. Sunday, we'd sit at my table and talk carefully, honestly, about anything except the past. The document on my laptop waited to be finished. The house around me stood solid, mine again, and I stood there too, on my own porch, drinking cold coffee and watching the world turn. Free. Finally, completely free. Tomorrow, I'd finish the document. Tomorrow, I'd call Marcus about estate planning, real planning this time, with protections in place. Tomorrow, I'd check the restitution payment status, just to confirm. But tonight, I'd just stand here and breathe. That was victory enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.